Hey Marriage for Real family, I hope you're well. How are you doing? So I wanted to share a few things that I've learned about marriage from my parents. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave a comment, and that'll be great.
We'll just keep on praising him, raise him up. Oh yeah, you see people taking their place in your love. Oh yeah, as you keep your light in our lives from above. Oh yeah, you just spark the fire that fires me up. Oh yeah.
My parents have been married for like 40 years. It's a long time. 40 years of marriage, and I promise you, they are still so in love. Like, my dad is ridiculously in love with my mom, and you know, my mom is right there with my dad, and they are still going strong, and they have a great relationship and a great marriage. I thought it'd be great, because I've only been married 13 years, and you know, I come on here and do some videos, and which is great because, you know, God has really given me wisdom and has helped me to learn a lot from the years that we've had together. But I thought it'd be great to share some wisdom from the higher, greater people of my parents who are really going to, you know, got the experience of 40 years to back it up. So one thing that I've learned from my parents is the importance of understanding. Like, if you want to have a marriage that stands the test of time, I've seen that you've got to get understanding. You've got to understand each other like nobody else understands each other. You've got to get underneath the skin. You can't do this top level understanding. You've really got to get to know your spouse to the core. But the thing is, it's not just getting to know them. It's actually using the knowledge. It's actually using that understanding. So I've said this a few times. You know, people say, oh yeah, I know my husband. Oh, I know my wife. Well, if you know them, then use the knowledge. And so I've seen that my parents have really understand what make each other tick, what motivates each other, what brings each other down, what lifts each other up, what they need at individual times. For example, when my dad comes back from church, he can be a bit of a grump. Like, all day he'll be in church and he'll be fine, doing what he needs to do. He's a pastor, and then when he gets home, he can be quite, you know, bit moody and irritable and grumpy. And us as kids would be like, what is wrong with him? Do you know what I mean? But when I got to an age where my mum would, you know, sort of talk to me on that level, she'd be like, you know what, he's just hungry. And I'd be like, is that it? And I understood what she'd finished church and she'd rush to get into the kitchen, not even to feed us, to get him some food and just feed him. And literally, you would see him just calm right down. You know, I mean, and that's a really, really playful example. But you know, somebody else could just look at that and be like, you know, he gets back from church and he's always moody. Why are you moody? Why are you moody? No, I'm going to understand you and get to know why you're kind of like this. And then I'm going to use it. I'm going to do something to help you out, or to make sure that this doesn't affect our marriage. So if it means I have to finish church and go straight to the kitchen, rustle something up and feed you so that you can have some, you can feel better and there can be peace in the home, then I'm going to do that. But there's other examples of you know, when you see that your spouse is demotivated or feeling down, or you need to pick them up, or they're irritable and what have you. Trying to understand, so not always just looking at the top level, but understanding them, understand their background, understand what makes them tick. And then using that knowledge is just really powerful. And I've seen my dad do it with my mom, and you know, they both really have, over the 40 years, and I guess it does take that long to understand somebody at that level. And I guess that they'll always be learning and growing. So that learning won't stop, you know, but at least in the 40 years I've gotten to a place where they really do get each other, and they're able to have a really peaceful marriage. And that is the other thing that I've learned from my parents, to really seek for peace, you know. And when I talk about peace, people think that, you know, I'm just all about avoiding conflict. Actually, I'm not, because I really do believe that some conflict is beneficial. Sometimes you've got to rough it out a little bit, you know, you've got to tough it out a little bit to come out the other side. Sometimes you need a bit of conflict to understand each other. But I think that what I've learned is that where you can choose peace, where you can say sorry and move on, say sorry. Where you can take it on the chin and choose your battles wisely, take it on the chin and choose your battles, you know. And I've seen my parents do that. I've not seen them just go into arguments willy-nilly, and, you know, and once they realize they're in that argument, both of them just stay there because they both just want to win. No, I've seen them try and find a peaceful way of getting through whatever conflict there is. And if it does start to get a bit tense, you know, one of them or both of them looking for a way to bring it back to a place of peace. And, you know, my dad has always said that if you're in a marriage and it's not peaceful and happy, then you're living in hell. Like, his whole ambition with his marriage was to be happy and to be peaceful. And so, you know, he has gone after that, and I'm seeing the benefits of it. I've seen how that has worked for him in his marriage with my mum. So definitely let peace be the thing that you're chasing after, you know, in your marriage. The third thing that I've learned from my parents as I've grown up watching their marriage is that they put each other first. Like, it was definitely not all about the kids. It was all about their marriage. And I think some people might be quite shocked about that, because, you know, you want to hear people say, oh, you know, it's all about the children. Everything we do is all about the children. We put the children first. Whereas I came from a home where actually it was very obvious to us that their unity and their marriage was a priority to them. And it didn't harm us. In fact, it did the opposite to us. It gave us security. It gave us security. We knew that the thought of divorce or separation or anything like that didn't even occur to us, because we were like, these two are way too into each other, like, you know. And because of them prioritizing their union and their marriage, it actually allowed us to grow and be confident and be self-secure and be assured and feel safe and be fruitful, you know. And so I always give this analogy of, you know, the tree being the marriage and the apple being the children, the fruits that the tree bears forth. And if you neglect the tree, the fruit are going to die. Regardless of how much you shine the fruit, you water the fruit, whatever you do to keep this fruit, you know, feeling and living well and looking healthy, if you neglect the tree from where the fruit comes from, the fruit is going to suffer. So if we went out to eat and we're all like, oh, I want to sit next to mommy, I want to sit next to mommy, he'd be like, no, I'm sitting next to my wife. This is my wife. You know what I mean? He said to us, she was here before you guys came along and she'll be here after you guys go. You know, he was making sure, and you know, literally, and he's true. We've all left the house. We're all living our own lives. You know, we're not at their house every single day. We do our own thing. And it's just them two. And so if they didn't prioritize their relationship, after we left, what would they have had? It would have been a struggle. But their marriage was completely fine after we left, because they were like, hey, it's about us too, you know? So that's a huge lesson, and my husband and I have really taken that on board. And our children love seeing our love. They love seeing mommy and daddy when we're like, oh, we're off for a date. And, you know, when we're like, no, my husband will say, no, this is my wife. And, you know, when I'm serving my food, the food for the family, I serve my husband first. And we just make sure that they see that you have a safe place here. Mommy and daddy are tight. We are connected. We are in love. So you have nothing to worry about. And you don't, whatever is going on outside can happen outside, but when you come home, you know that you're in a very safe place. And that leads me on to the other thing that I've learned from my parents, and was having something sweet and meaningful and almost declaring who your spouse is. You know, not letting your marriage get to the point where you guys are just you take each other for granted, and you know, you don't claim them. So like I was saying before, I didn't even know my mum's name for many years, because my dad would always refer to my mum as either Queen or my wife. It was Queen or my wife. We were like, what's her name? My mum would call my dad Anyim, and for the life of me, I've completely forgotten what Anyim means. Anyim. It doesn't even sound so sweet now I say it like that, Anyim. Anyways, it means something really nice. When I find out, I'll let you guys know. And literally, that's what they call each other. I've never heard my mom call my dad his name. I'm not even joking. I've never heard it. I have never heard my dad call my mom her name. Never. And, you know, I grew up seeing that, and to me it was so sweet, you know, especially my dad's, because it was like, my queen, my wife, like, you are mine. You know, he was declaring that thing, you know, and I think that just having those names for each other was just so sweet, and just was a continual reminder of the love and the affection that they had for each other. And I think that that's a great lesson, because it's so easy to just let life go by, and before you know it, you're just these flatmates, and the little ways that we can use to show affection, we don't take them. And I just think that having pet names and love names for each other are simple ways that we can just maintain a level of intimacy and affection. Okay, the other thing that I learned from my parents is that definitely opposites attract, and they can definitely work. Opposites attract and they can work, because my mum and dad are completely different. My mum is that out there girl. She's out, she's doing this, she's doing that, you know, she's all over the place. She just jumps in before thinking. She's just that person, you know. My dad is a lot more of a homebody, and he likes to study, and he's a thinker. He's very, very wise, you know, and so he wants to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed before he does anything. And I know through speaking to my mum that at first that took some getting used to and adjusting. But you know what? They did get to a point where they realized that actually these two differences, or all our differences, if we can work out how they can work together, could be quite powerful. So when I'm about to jump off the cliff, and you know, just jump into this thing, I can take a moment and say, but wait a minute, I know my husband's a thinker. Let me just check in with him and get those I's crossed and those T's dotted. I'm not going to do it to the point where he holds me back on this, but I'm going to definitely tap into that gift and that strength that he's got, and vice versa. When my dad might be sitting back on something and just, you know, really waiting on it and trying to make it perfect, my mum could just give him that fire and that push that he needs. And so that's the way you know, they complement each other like that. My dad allows my mum to be the woman that she is, and he allows her to be the man that he is, and they figured out a way of making their differences complement each other, which I think is amazing. And guess what? I've gone and done the same thing. Mr. Chuako and I are so different, and we are at that stage where we're learning how, you know, our differences can complement each other, and it's starting to work really, really well. It does take some time, but if you stay committed to it and learn how to appreciate each other for who you are, then you get there, and you find that actually what you have is very powerful. And the last thing that I learned from my parents is the power of prayer. The power of prayer. My parents pray, like, you know, they pray together, they pray individually, they pray. And it wasn't foreign for me to wake up in the middle of the night and hear them praying together. And then it wouldn't be foreign for me to wake up in the morning and hear my dad downstairs praying, or hear my mum at the top room praying. Like, they prayed, you know. And I really feel like that's one of the things that really held their marriage together. The fact that they, yes, went off and had their individual time with the Lord, and they've got their individual walk with the Lord, but also also they battled a lot in the spirit together, and I think that that's something that, you know, really I'm trying to grab hold of. Miss Chwako is working on, and I really feel like other married couples should work on just that understanding of the power of prayer for our home, for our marriages, for our children, for our families, you know. And some people are sort of like, you know, we only pray together, and outside of the prayer that my husband and I do, I don't really pray. Whereas it's really important to have that time by yourself to pray. But then there's other people who's just like, you know, I have my time of prayer, he has his time of prayer, and that's it. Where again, it's also really important to have that time where you're both standing in unity on a thing and decreeing, declaring these things as a married couple, you know, and that has a real strong significance in the spirit. And I've seen the fruits of their prayer life in my life, in their marriage, you know. And so that's something that I really feel like all married couples should take on board. All right, guys, I hope that you found that useful. That's just a few things that I've learned from watching my parents' marriage as I've grown up. I'd be interested to hear what you've learned from your parents as you watched them in their marriage and how they handled their relationship. Pop your comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and also follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, all under the name of Marriage for Real. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.